Eden Memorial Chapels understands Jewish funerals can take many forms. Some are very Orthodox, while others are more conservative or of a Reformed nature. There's no one better in New York or New Jersey. Go to EdenMemorial.com.
From Wall Street to the White House, this is the Larry Kudlow Show.
All right, we're going to talk some politics here. As I said in the opening, I think the momentum of the race has completely changed. And I think Kamala made a ginormous mistake not showing up at the Al Smith dinner. I think she bombed in the Bret Baier interview. But let's hear from Joe Concha, Fox News contributor. Joe's newest book, Progressively Worse, Why Today's Democrats Ain't Your Daddy's Donkeys. And we've got Caroline Downey, National Review reporter and visiting fellow at the Independent Women's Forum. Caroline, I think I've said to you, I think I'm still on the board. That's Heather Richardson, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
No, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I'm a longtime board member. I don't do much, but whatever.
I love it.
Let me start with you. I don't know if you were at the Al Smith dinner, you saw it on TV, you read about it.
I saw it.
Yeah,
on TV.
My analysis is very simple. Kamala didn't show up, therefore she lost. Trump showed up, therefore he won. Now it's better than that because the video she mailed in was so cringeworthy and weird, it alienated people even more, besides not showing up. And Trump was quite good in his remarks, his jokes, his zingers. All right, and he said he didn't like some of them. I mean, these things are given to these jokes are given to him. But what did you think? And what does this mean for the race? Okay, we're 2 weeks and change away from Election Day, Caroline Downey. Give me your take on the race and how this Al Smith dinner affects it.
Yeah, well, even if Trump wasn't given prepared jokes from his team, which clearly came up with some real good one-liners, and I know this, I go to comedy clubs in New York City all the time, and those jokes were up there with the best of them. But, I mean, Trump is great at impromptu humor anyway. Kamala Harris doesn't have a funny bone in her body, so she kind of naturally would have failed such a function. I think even if she had showed up, it might have been a little bit sterile. But you're right. Her absence is what gave her the loss there, because the problem with not going to a roast is that you will be roasted in your absence anyway, not just by the moderator, Jim Gaffigan, but by Trump. And so you're not there to defend yourself. And so she ended up looking like she was too afraid to take a joke. And, hey, that doesn't really give people a lot of confidence in the final stretch of the race that you can govern the free world if you can't take a few fast punches. And so I think politically the implications are this. Trump has not been afraid to wade into the lion's den, no matter what it is. It's any interview with any network at any venue. Kamala Harris has had a carefully curated, basically press tour up until this point. I mean, she still is doing that. I mean, she was cloistered from the public for the first half of her campaign. It's been so short, the shortest campaign in history, basically. And that was on purpose because they were trying to ride the vibes as long as possible because she is a essentially vapid, feckless person who lacks political talent and competence. So now she's actually having to confront interviewers from adversarial networks as well as friendly networks, and she's fumbling at every turn. And but she missed an opportunity to persuade, I think, swing voters at the Al Smith dinner, to persuade Catholics. I mean, obviously they're...
It was a national, it was televised everywhere. The Al Smith dinner became a national event. I think that's really important. I'll go to Joe Concha. Joe, I think, first of all, go back a day or two to the Bret Baier interview. Bret Baier is a superb journalist, okay? And I don't think he was asking adversarial questions. I think he was asking the questions that are on everybody's mind, immigration, the economy, and some other things. I think she bombed and lost her cool in the Bret Baier interview. And then I think that all those mistakes were compounded by not showing up at the Al Smith dinner and mailing in that ridiculous, weird, cringeworthy video. So what you think about that?
Larry, in a macro sense, this is the worst 2 weeks I could remember for any presidential candidate this close to the election. The timing couldn't be worse. Think about in aggregate what we have seen over the last 2 weeks. She somehow screwed up an interview on The View, which no Democrat has screwed up in the history of television, right? That's the simple question in the world. It's simplest question, guys. What will you do differently from Joe Biden, or what would you have done differently over the last 3.5 years? And she says, nothing really comes to mind. He goes, nothing really comes to mind? I can think of 40 things that could come to mind right now. And she couldn't answer the question. Then she goes on Colbert after that. And she's asked the same question. He gives her a do-over because he's an activist. And she still can't answer the question. And now we see later, as far as the 60 Minutes interview, that had to be heavily edited just to make her look halfway decent, and she still looked horrible. And then we see Fox News. And I hear one more criticism, by the way, Brett Baer. Like, oh, he was rude. Oh, it was an ambush. No, that was journalism, actually, because she wasn't answering the questions. He had to redirect her. Go back and watch Brett Baer's interview with Donald Trump last year. He interrupted him, Brett did, more than he interrupted Kamala Harris, but no one said a thing about it because that's the way Trump interviews usually go. So she looked horrible. It did not go well. You're right about the Al Smith dinner. Isn't it amazing that she has all of Hollywood on her side, basically? And that's the best video they could come up with?
Oh, good
Mocking
point.
Catholics?
Good point.
So
yeah.
You're looking at polling now, guys. It's all going in the wrong direction.
That's a superb point, Joe. She's got
Thank you.
all those Hollywood people and their writers that could have given a really good, entertaining skit. I mean, she needed to show up. That's the point. But if she was going to do the video, she could have. I had forgotten about that. You're exact. I mean, basically, I happen to know some of the people that put in the jokes for Mr. Trump, and as he said, he liked some of them, he didn't like others. But she could have done a whole lot better. Look, Joe, on the other point with Brett Baer, who's a very good friend of mine, and I think a very good newsman.
Yeah.
He just asked questions that is on everybody's mind. He wasn't digging up things from 5, 10, 20 years. He just, look, the border, the economy, crime, and every time she refused to answer, he came back and repeated it. I mean, there's nothing wrong. That's that's what journalism is all about. If you don't answer the question, you got to come back and, fire away again, try it again. And she lost her cool. She lost her temper. Am I wrong there? She looked like, she was waving her arms and her face, you could see it in her face. She was engaged in warfare. Take that with Trump. Trump has these interviews. You never see him do that.
He didn't look presidential.
That's right.
Sure.
No,
and the goal was to go on Fox News and try to convert maybe some folks that are on the fence, to convince them to vote for you. And instead, Larry, Caroline, she evoked Donald Trump's either name or indirectly Donald Trump 42 times during a 26-minute interview. And she spoke for about 19 minutes of that 26. So twice a minute she had to go to the Trump card because it's all she had. And the fact that Brett, I'll give you two quick examples. When she started to say, he brought up immigration first, and she said, we had a comprehensive bill on day one. And he said, yeah, and here's the name of it. You had the House, you had the Senate, yet you never passed it. Why? She goes, Brett, let's talk about what's real here. It's like, no, that's what's real. You didn't pass anything. So good. It was chess versus checkers. And then when he brought up that she once said that she wanted to pay for illegal immigrants to get sex changes, she said, well, that was 5 years ago. And he's like, okay, but you chose Tim Walz to be your running mate, and he literally put that into law. So if you chose him, that means you support that, right? And she couldn't answer the question. So we're not going to see polls that reflect the Fox News interview probably for, give it another 5 or 6 days. But you think they're bad now? They're going to be infinitely worse when this is baked in.
Caroline, I don't know if you saw it. Trump was interviewed for nearly an hour in Chicago at the Economics Club of Chicago by this chap, Mickawaith, who used to be editor of The Economist, which once upon a time, The Economist magazine was a conservative free market, but it's not. It became a left-wing rag. And now he's the editor of Bloomberg, which is a very liberal outlet. Anyway, my point is he interviewed Trump in front of a couple hundred people at the Economics Club of Chicago. and he argued with Trump. But Trump never lost his cool. I don't know if you saw it. I saw the whole thing.
Oh, I did.
Yes.
Yeah, that interview also shows Trump's expertise on the economy,
Right.
and that he's able to articulate his economic policies, including not just deregulation, not just his, the revival of his tax cuts, but protectionist tariffs that will preserve domestic manufacturing, which, by the way, is a word that I think is foreign to Kamala Harris. I think manufacturing has been the last priority in her mind for administration. I mean, she is economically illiterate generally. She's proposing these subsidies for housing and for small businesses. She's saying, we're going to give you $50,000. No, Kamala, that's not how that works. It's not a tax credit. It's a tax deduction. But she keeps conflating those things. And Trump goes up there, and he's in there with a very serious economic thinking, pundit.
A complex. He has a complex plan that fits together, and he explains it without blowing his cool. I mean, he said to Micaway, "Look, I'm sorry, I understand you believe this stuff, but you've been wrong for 25 years." And he brought the house down by saying that. But he didn't start yelling, and losing his cool. He just said it. I mean, he's accustomed to doing that. She's not accustomed to any, conflicting, disagreeable questions. She can't handle it.
All of Republicans are conditioned to hostile interviews. Democrats are not.
Yes.
They really bank on the fact that they won't get tough questions because the mainstream media networks are normally doing their bidding, and they enjoy that luxury in the way that Republicans do not. Trump enjoys it least of all. He's the most targeted political figure by legacy media of our time. And so that is the ultimate test. I think Americans looking at the different treatment of Trump versus Kamala should say they're making her comfortable. She's exposing her incompetence despite the fact that they've made her comfortable up until this point with puff pieces and glowing reviews and the hope and change campaign of Obama all over again, even though she's offered nothing substantive. Trump has received nothing but a hard time, and he's still articulating very well what he's going to do.
Well,
and
that's enough. I got to take a break, but as Joe said, she flunked The View. That's really a very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And she actually flunked the Colbert thing, too. All right, got to take a break.
Yeah.
Joe Concha, Fox News contributor. Joe's latest book, Progressively Worse, Why Today's Democrats Ain't Your Daddy's Donkeys, and Caroline Downing, National Review reporter, visiting fellow at the Independent Women's Forum. I'm Kudlow. Quick break, and we'll be right back.
Larry Kudlow. From Wall Street to the White House, this is the Larry Kudlow Show.
We're talking politics with Joe Concha, Fox News contributor, and his book, latest book, Progressively Worse, Why Today's Democrats Ain't Your Daddy's Donkeys. Joe, you working on the Trump book?
Matter of fact, I am. It's been a work in progress. And Larry, I just keep adding chapters. It just keeps writing itself.
Yeah.
It's remarkable. And if he wins, I mean, it's called, the art of the comeback, playing off the art of the deal, right? And what I called is, if he wins this, when you consider where we were in terms of Donald Trump and the public perception of him on January 7th, 2021, this would be the greatest political comeback, perhaps the greatest comeback in American history. I'm even talking more better than Red Sox coming back from 3-0 against the Yankees 20 years ago.
I'll tell you, I was in the White House then still. I didn't leave until the very end, but those were the low points. And throughout 2021, that was very, Donald Trump, wow. And then came the indictments and the weaponization. I don't want to forget Caroline Downey, National Review reporter, visiting fellow at the Independent Women's Forum, too. Caroline, covering the story. Yep, here you are. I want to talk just a moment. The barbershop, okay? You might think that's silly, but I don't think it's silly. Trump shows up with Lawrence Jones, my colleague, Fox and Friends reporter, terrific guy, smart guy. And he's going to these barbershops with Trump. And, this one was in the Bronx. Trump sits down. He says, look, we're the same. I grew up in the Bronx. I grew up in Queens, rather. You grew up in the Bronx. He's a billionaire, but you know what? He's not a typical billionaire. And this is part of his effort to reach out with, basically working-class folks, white, black, brown, Hispanic, etc. That's what was in that barbershop. It was fascinating. And the other thing I want to add to it, Joe, besides the barbershop idea, which, Kamala wouldn't sit down like that in an impromptu way. He showed up, by the way, in the New York Post, they're writing, the owner of the barbershop had no idea Trump was coming. He just showed up, okay? And that's really quite interesting. And he's sitting there with some clips on Fox and Friends. But the point is, she would never do such a thing. But the other point is, he's going to speak, I don't know when, next week or the week after at Madison Square Garden.
27th.
27th, thank you. He's going.
So excited.
He's going into the Lion's Den. I think Caroline said that. He's going into the Lion's Den in New York, okay? He's not going to win New York State. He will cut the margin substantially so that Republican congressmen can win. But he is unafraid to do this stuff, from a barbershop to Madison Square Garden to the Al Smith dinner, right? He's not missing a beat. Joe Concha, take a whack at it, but please leave some room for Caroline.
Absolutely. No, he's already gone in the past 10 days. California, Colorado. He's expanding the map. Maybe he's trying to help some down ballot races. He goes to New York. Maybe he doesn't win New York, but he could win New Jersey. And, that's going to be played big time on our local news. I'll leave it here. Him going to that barbershop in the Bronx would be like Kamala Harris doing a speech at halftime of an Alabama football game.
Yeah.
How do you think she would be received, right? She wouldn't be received well, but Trump was received exceptionally, and it wasn't staged anyway. That was all organic.
Caroline, I don't want to be sexist about it, but if Kamala was cool, she'd stop by a beauty parlor in the Bronx or something like that. But she won't.
That would be far too organic for her, Larry, right. I'm afraid.
Right.
And, despite her insistences that I'm from a middle-class family, show don't tell would be a better strategy there. Trump, like you said, loves the element of surprise. He's a very authentic person. It's just how he operates. So his campaign stops at bodegas, construction sites, barbershops in New York. All of that is incredibly real, and it's incredibly symbolic. The common man is on the same level as him. I mean, when you talk to Trump, a lot of people say he talks to you as though you are the exact same level as him. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris and the Democrats speak to voters as if they're kindergartners with a learning disability.
Right.
I mean, honestly, like they're stupid and have to have everything translated to them. Trump talks to them like, hey, let's get a beer. I mean, like they're actually they're people with minds, and they know what their interests are. They know what they want their futures to be for their children and future generations. Not like they're idiots. And I think that's a big point here is when he goes to these stops, he's saying, I'm one of you, and also I'm fighting for you. I mean, I still think, Larry, that ad that went out with the Trump campaign, it says, she's for they, them, I'm for you, is still one of the best messages of this campaign cycle. It's pretty funny.
Yep. Joe Concha, 2 weeks and change left. Real Clear Politics average of the swing states show Trump the winner now. He's ahead in every swing state. I know it's just polls. Polls don't vote. But what do you make of that? Last 30 seconds.
The context is, Larry, that in those same Real Clear Politics averages in 2020 and 2016, Trump was down 6 points, 7 points, 8 points, depending on the state. If he's leading now the way they underweight him, you are looking at an electoral landslide, and she can do nothing to stop it, it feels like, at this point, because there's no more big events.
Wow.
It's it.
Yeah, and he's ahead on the key issues, too. In fact, there's a new Wall Street Journal poll. He's got like a 15-point lead on foreign policy. You guys are great. Thank you ever so much. Joe Concha, Fox News contributor, Caroline Downey, National Review. My name is Kudlow. We're going to be back with John Carney of Breitbart News to talk about tariffs and inflation. Stick with us, folks.